Hi guys, welcome back to Winsome Cottage Garden. My name is Hannah. I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. We are at the cottage working at the bed right up near the patio under our deck area. You might have seen in past videos, see if I can pop a picture in here, that we used to have a rather large stand of Russian sage that was wild. It was an older variety that had just kind of put out roots everywhere, was getting rather big and floppy. And we decided that it was time to kind of shift it to something else that was a little lower growing to improve our view, as well as make room for some things that we'd wanted to add. So that's where I am today, and I kind of can show you the area and what we are planning to do with it. This is the area. This used to be completely filled with Russian sage. In fact, it's actually right here. We're going to see if we can get some roots out to go put it in another area of the garden where we don't mind if it naturalizes. And the one thing that Russian sage definitely is going for it is that deer don't eat it. So you also can see there's a couple of Lucifer's tongue because we have a big stand of it over here. But it's created quite a space. This space is probably, man, almost 10 feet long, 8 to 10 feet long and about 5 feet wide. We decided that we're actually going to be putting a rose in it about there. That we think we're going to do a David Austin rose. We can't find the particular type we want, so we're probably going to buy it bare root and plant it early next spring. So we are going to leave some space for that, and we're just kind of filling it as things catch our interest and eye. So one of the key centerpieces and one of the main reasons actually we took out the Russian sage is because we are going to be planting a wisteria here. This is a Blue Moon Wisteria. It's actually an American wisteria, which I don't actually know a ton about wisteria, but I do know that American wisteria is a little less invasive than some of the other Asian varieties. This one is particularly cold hardy, but it can still get quite large. I think it can get 15 to 20 feet tall and wide. So our goal is actually to plant it on this column right next to me and train it up onto our deck railing. It's going to need some pruning, but we've planted wisteria. Well, my parents planted wisteria once when I was quite young at a house many houses ago that never bloomed. They had it in its place for about 7 or 8 years and it never bloomed once. So we actually bought this last year in a clearance sale and it's bloomed in its pot, which is awesome. We're really thrilled because we know it's capable of blooming. We've also heard that this Blue Moon Wisteria is also an earlier bloomer compared to some of those Asian varieties that don't like blooming for many, many years. So we are going to plant it right here. And then I'm going to see, my dad's trying to see if he can find a trellis. It doesn't grow on suckers. It generally gets tied up and eventually will create like a woody base that will bring up around this column and up onto the deck is the goal. So that is going to be going right there. I also have a collection of plants that we picked up at the clearance at Lowe's. You know, I like to see what I can find that I'm going to get in the ground. I'm not quite sure exactly where they're ending up. Some of them, the bulk of them, I think are going to go in this bed because I've got a couple of ideas on where I'd like to put them. And we'll kind of work on filling this out as we go. We're not looking for things that are huge. We want to keep the things in this space 2 to 3 feet tall at the highest so that we can still maintain this view. Because if I stand right here, this is actually the view from our basement. Once it gets finished, it'll matter a little bit more. And we want to make sure that we're not planting anything that really blocks it, because the Russian sage got huge. Like it grew up to about there. Doesn't seem that tall, but it really blocked a lot from this space. So I'm going to set you guys up and just kind of capture where we get things planted, and then I will show you what the finished product looks like. say that didn't take all that long. Let me kind of show you this angle from a different view, and then I'll walk you through the plants that we put in there and some more stats on them. And here is the space. You can see there's still quite a lot of space for us to kind of fill. I've kind of started on the outsides because I know we're going to want some slightly larger things in there. And this, I think, will help us just get it started. And we'll pick up bits and pieces as we see them at the store. But I'll start over here. I actually planted that, which I don't think I showed earlier. It is a creeping phlox that we actually had in one of the front pots this spring that we took out. So I've got it in the ground, and hopefully it'll probably fill this space up and kind of go over. But if we move over here, none of these are in flower, so I'll see if I can find some photos to add so that I can give you some more details about what they look like. But this is actually a Scent First Sugar Plum Dianthus. I planted a number of Scent First Dianthus at my house recently in a video, but I didn't get this one. So it's really pretty. It's a pink with a darker red variegation almost. And it is a zone 5+. It'll bloom in the spring. I bet typically these rebloom in our area if we deadhead them. And it'll get 8 to 12 inches high and 16 to 12 inches wide. So that will fill this space pretty well, I think, at a nice little pop. It's also lower, it's kind of hard to see, but the bed kind of slopes a little this way. So even though it'll get up to 12 inches tall, you'll still be able to see over it really well. But it'll 16 to 22. I'm thinking it might not, but I'm thinking it might kind of fill this space and kind of get close to this phlox, which was already here as well. We also have one right here in the rocks that planted itself, which is kind of nice. Over here is actually a blue scabiosa or pincushion flower, known as butterfly blue. Butterfly blue pincushion flower. It is a zone 4+, so it's not hardy in zones 3 and below, which is -20 to -30. Good news, we don't get that cold here. It'll get 15 by 15, and it's got the most beautiful, I have a lot of these in my yard, like blue blooms that kind of provide, it says 15 inches tall. The actual plant will only get maybe 8 inches, but the blooms go above it, and they'll kind of provide, in some ways, like a little bouncing blue bloom that I think will be a nice pop of color in this area. And if you can just imagine like a rose about there, providing a backdrop to all of this, it'd be pretty. Next up, we have this guy. It is actually a salvia from Proven Winners. It's a bicolored salvia called Azure Snow. It is kind of a medium-ish size perennial. It'll get 13 to 20 inches tall. So that is probably one of the taller things I planted here, but I thought some vertical interest right there would be nice, and that's including the bloom height. It'll get about 18 inches wide. So again, I think it will kind of fill this little space created by the steps rather well. If we move up, you can see I've got 3 little dianthus here. These are actually a variety that I did plant at my house called Early Bird Sherbert Dianthus. It is a really pretty pink color that stays really small. It'll get 4 to 6 inches tall and 4 to 6 inches wide. It's hardy in zones 5+. So since it stays so small, I just kind of am hoping that it might fill this little corner area. I should have realized when I was planting it that since we're so close to the steps, there is a bit of like gravel mixture under it that I was a little surprised by, but I think there's enough soil there. They're fairly shallow rooted that it can root in well. If we make our way over here, I planted 3 of these guys. There's one here, and then there's also, they're kind of harder to see because they're in deep shade right now, one here and one here. So this is actually a ground cover called Golden Moneywort. I thought it was interesting. It's a partial sun one, so I think in this area it'll do well. It's low growing, and it just kind of has some green. It says it flowers. Well, I don't know what exactly it looks like, but I'm interested to see. and it's gonna get 6 inches high and up to 24 inches wide. So I thought that was kind of cool. I kind of popped them around, and maybe they'll provide a little bright green pop in this area, especially underneath the wisteria. Let me see if I go like this, you can kind of see it better, and you can see that it did bloom. Most of them are gone, but this one is nearing its tail end. Isn't that pretty? It's just a short panicle. But I planted it towards this guy. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a Blue Moon Wisteria. It's got fragrant blue purple pea flowers that can get up to 12 inches long. So this year they were quite small, which makes sense. But it will get 2.5 to 3 feet wide, so it should fill that space. But it could get 15 to 25 feet tall, and is hardy down to zone 4. So you can actually see that we are hoping from there it will grow up and maybe kind of cover a couple of those rails a little bit to create this brilliant purple display in the spring. We're toying with the idea of getting some other climbers, including a climbing rose that we might stick on this one. We just need to decide if it gets quite enough sun, but it's really, really pretty. We're actually gonna get one bonus planting because in my clearance adventures, I found a pink bleeding heart, and I know I mentioned earlier that I wanted to add some more bleeding hearts to the bed in the front. So I'm gonna do that. I actually think it's gonna go right here. This is a white bleeding heart, so if I pop it right there, I think that would be pretty to have 2 of them together. Either right there or right here, though you won't see it much there. I think that would be prettier, to be honest. Or I could tuck it back like here. That actually is a nice place for it, because when they flower in the spring, these are so much smaller, and then they start yellowing and dying back, and by the time they do that, this will have hit it. So I'm gonna actually plant it right there. I'll get you guys set up, get it planted, and show you more. Okay, there it is, nice and nestled in. This is a bleeding heart. It's just a normal pink variety. It gets about 2 to 3 feet high and 15 to 24 feet high wide. So I think it's actually going to fill in that space quite nicely. And then once it's starting to die back, this guy will kind of come in and take over, and we won't notice it as much. But in the spring we definitely will, which is when we would really like to see it. They are hardy down to zone 2, so it's an incredibly hardy plant. We have a pink one there, a white one here, and then a white one right here, and another pink one right here. I kind of would like to see if I could get my hands on a deeper red or magenta one. So there's 5 in that bed, and total odd numbers are better. And then that way I can get one more in the middle, and I think that would be really, really pretty. Anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.